Close your eyes and take a deep breath. Can you smell it? That rich, savory scent of charcoal smoke and searing beef wafting through the parking lot. It's Friday night in 1965. Dad just got home with his paycheck in his pocket, and Mom is smiling because tonight, the oven stays off. Tonight we are going to the steakhouse. Going out to dinner used to be an event. We didn't just grab a greasy bag through a car window and eat it on our laps while driving. We respected the meal. Do you remember getting dressed up? Dad would put on a fresh sport coat or at least a nice collared shirt. Mom would touch up her lipstick and maybe wear her pearls. Even us kids had to comb our hair and tuck in our shirts. We weren't going to a wedding, we were just going to Ponderosa or Bonanza, or maybe the local Sizzler. But it felt like a special occasion because it was a special occasion. You pile into the station wagon. The anticipation builds as you drive down the main strip. And then you see it, the giant neon sign buzzing against the twilight sky. Maybe it was the cowboy hat of the Bonanza sign or the simple, bold letters of Tad's Steaks. The parking lot is packed with heavy steel cars, Impalas, Galaxies, Furies, shining under the streetlights. You walk through the double doors and the sound hits you first, the low hum of conversation. No beeping smartphones, no televisions blaring sports news in every corner, just people talking to people, the clinking of silverware on real china plates, and above it all that distinct sound that made your mouth water instantly, the sizzle. Do you remember the tray line? It was a ritual. You grabbed a heavy plastic tray, maybe it was brown or orange, and you slid it along the metal rails. You looked up at the menu board with those plastic white letters and the prices. Looking back now, they seem like a misprint. Ribeye steak dinner, $2.99. T-bone, $3.49. Chopped sirloin, $1.99. And that wasn't just for the meat. That price included the world. It included the baked potato wrapped in foil, shining like a silver nugget. It included the thick slice of Texas toast, buttery and grilled to perfection. And of course, it included the all-you-can-eat salad bar. The salad bar was a kingdom of its own. Iceberg lettuce that was actually crisp. Crocks of dressings. Thousand Island, French, blue cheese with actual chunks of cheese in it. 3-bean salad. Potato salad. Cottage cheese. You could pile that plate as high as physics would allow and nobody stopped you. You stood in line with your family, smelling the grill, holding your tray, feeling like you were about to feast like royalty. And the amazing thing was, Dad didn't look stressed about the bill. He looked proud. He could feed a family of 5 on a factory worker's salary and still have money left for the tip. Let's grab a table, one of those wooden booths with the red vinyl seats, and talk about what happened when the food actually arrived. Because the experience of eating a steak in 1965 is something that seems to have vanished from the modern world. You slide into the booth. The vinyl seat is cool against your legs. The table is solid wood, maybe covered with a red and white checkered tablecloth, or maybe just polished dark oak. You place your plastic number stand on the edge of the table and you wait. But you didn't wait long. Back then, fast service meant humans moving with purpose, not a tablet sending signals to a kitchen. And then, you hear it coming before you see it. The waitress approaches with a massive tray resting on her shoulder. She sets it down. Clank. A heavy wooden board with a metal platter recessed inside. And on that platter, the main event. The steak wasn't a tiny, perfectly round medallion like you get at fancy places today. It was a slab of meat. It looked like something a cowboy would eat off a campfire. A T-bone that covered half the plate. A ribeye with that beautiful rim of fat that we weren't afraid to eat back then. We didn't trim the fat, that was the flavor. And let's talk about the sides. Today, if you go to a high-end steakhouse, they charge you $12 for a side of asparagus and $15 for mashed potatoes. Everything is à la carte. They nickel and dime you until the bill is astronomical. But in 1965, it was all right there. Next to the steak sat the baker, a russet potato the size of a football wrapped in foil. You unwrapped it carefully, hot steam escaping, and you mashed it open with your fork. You didn't get a tiny plastic cup of butter. You got a generous dollop of real whipped butter, a scoop of sour cream and a sprinkle of fresh chives. And then, the bread. Oh, the bread. Texas toast. Thick-cut white bread, slathered in garlic butter and grilled on the flat top until it was golden brown and crispy on the edges but soft in the middle. Why did that taste so good? Maybe because we weren't counting carbs. We were counting blessings. Now, let's do the math that makes grown men cry. That entire meal, the 16-ounce steak, the potato, the toast, the salad bar, cost, let's say, $3.50 on the high end. If you adjust $3.50 for inflation, today that should be around $32. That sounds reasonable, right? But try walking into a Ruth's Chris or a Morton's or even an Outback today. A steak dinner for one person with drinks and tip is easily $70 or $80, sometimes over $100. The price of beef has outpaced inflation by miles. But it's not just the price. It's the philosophy. Back then, a steak dinner was a middle-class luxury. It was accessible. A factory worker could take his wife and 3 kids out for steak on a Friday night, and the total bill would be under $20. Today, a family of 5 going out for steak is a $500 financial decision. It's a car payment, so we stopped going, or we downgraded. We started accepting frozen patties and processed nuggets as eating out. But in the 60s, we ate real food. We cut into that steak with a serrated knife, watched the juices run and took that first bite. It was smoky, salty, and tender. It tasted like success. And while we ate, we looked around. The atmosphere was different. There was a haze in the air, part cigarette smoke, part charcoal smoke, that gave the room a golden glow. And the service? That was a whole different world. Let's talk about the women who ran the floor, the waitresses who knew exactly what you needed before you even asked. Let's talk about the service. Today, you might order your food from a kiosk or scan a QR code on the table. You are serving yourself. But back then, the dining room was run by a different breed of worker, the career waitress. She wasn't a teenager doing this for a summer gig. She was a professional. She wore a uniform, maybe a white dress with a colored apron, comfortable orthopedic shoes, and a name tag that said Flo, Alice, or Dot. She carried a pot of coffee in one hand and a stack of plates in the other. She called you Hon, sweetie, or darlin', and she meant it. She didn't write down your order on an iPad. She pulled a pencil from behind her ear and scribbled it on a green guest check pad. And she never got it wrong. Medium rare, potato loaded, ranch on the side. She had a steel trap memory. She worked hard for her tips, and back then you left cash on the table. A pile of singles and quarters tucked under the salt shaker. It was a direct transaction of gratitude, and while you waited for her to bring the refills, look at what was happening at the table. Or rather, look at what wasn't happening. There were no glowing rectangles, no blue light illuminating faces. Nobody was taking a picture of their food to show to strangers on the internet. We were forced to do something that is becoming a lost art. We looked at each other. We talked. Fathers asked their sons about baseball practice. Mothers asked about school. Sometimes we argued. Sometimes we sat in silence. But we were present. We were there, in that moment, digesting the day along with our meal. The steakhouse was the original social network. Now we have to mention the elephant in the room, or rather the cloud in the room. The ashtray. It was right there on the table, usually a heavy glass square or a little gold foil disposable one. The moment the plates were cleared, sometimes even while people were eating, the lighters clicked. Zippos flared up. The air would fill with a blue-gray haze. To us today, it seems unthinkable. But back then, it was just part of the atmosphere, like the music or the wallpaper. It mixed with the smell of the steak and the coffee. It was the scent of adulthood. It was the scent of the 1960s. And the dinner didn't end when the food was gone. Nobody was rushing you out to turn the table. You ordered coffee, maybe a slice of cherry pie or a hot fudge sundae for 75 cents. You lingered. The adults talked politics or work, and the kids played with the sugar packets or drew on the back of the placemats. It was a slow experience. We weren't optimizing our time, we were spending it. And looking back, that time spent sitting in a red vinyl booth, smelling smoke and steak, listening to the clatter of dishes, that was the glue that held families together. But there is one more thing that made those dinners different. It wasn't just the price or the service, it was the food itself. Why did the beef taste different back then? Why were the vegetables simpler? Let's head back into the kitchen to find out why a 1965 steak puts a modern one to shame. Now let's talk about the flavor. Have you ever bitten into a steak today, or even a simple hamburger, and thought, something is missing? It looks like meat. It sizzles like meat. But the taste, it's just not there. It's bland, it's watery. In the 1960s, the food supply chain was shorter. It was cleaner. When you ordered that steak at Ponderosa, or when your mom bought a roast for Sunday dinner, chances are it didn't travel 2,000 miles in a plastic bag to get to you. We still had butchers, real butchers. You walked into a shop that smelled like sawdust and cold air. A man in a blood-stained white apron stood behind a glass counter. So he didn't just hand you a styrofoam tray wrapped in plastic. He brought out a side of beef. He asked you, how thick do you want it? And he cut it right there in front of your eyes. The meat was fresh. It wasn't pumped full of saline solution to add water weight. It wasn't gas flushed to keep it artificially red for 3 weeks. It was red because it was real. The cows weren't necessarily raised in massive industrial feedlots by the millions. Many were still sourced from regional farms. The beef had a distinct flavor. It was rich, mineral, and grassy. It tasted like the land it came from. Today, 4 massive corporations control almost the entire meat supply of the United States. It's efficiency over quality. It's profit over palate. And it wasn't just the meat. Do you remember what a tomato used to taste like? If you grew up in the 60s, a tomato was a revelation. It was soft, it was messy, and it exploded with sweet and tangy juice when you bit into it. You could eat it like an apple, with just a sprinkle of salt. Today, tomatoes are bred for one thing: durability. They are engineered to have thick skins so they can bounce around in a truck for a week without bruising. They are picked green and gassed with ethylene to turn red on the supermarket shelf. They look perfect, round, shiny red, but when you slice them, they are dry and taste like wet cardboard. We traded flavor for shelf life. Think about the salad bar at that steakhouse again. The cucumbers were crisp. The onions made you cry. The blue cheese dressing had chunks of moldy, delicious cheese in it, not just chemical flavoring agents and soybean oil. We didn't have to read labels back then because we didn't need a degree in chemistry to understand what we were eating. Bread had flour, water, yeast, and salt. Today, a loaf of bread has 30 ingredients, half of which you can't pronounce, just to keep it soft for a month. We were eating organic and farm-to-table before those were fancy, expensive marketing terms. We just called it food. And because the food was denser in nutrients and flavor, we were satisfied with less. We didn't need to supersize everything. That 12-ounce steak was plenty. That small bottle of Coke was a treat, not a hydration strategy. We fed our bodies, not just our cravings. So, the next time a young person tells you that food is better and safer today, tell them about the taste of a garden-grown tomato in July of 1965. Tell them about the butcher who knew your dad's name. Tell them that progress sometimes means leaving the best things behind. But the most painful comparison isn't about the food. It's about what happened to the places themselves. and why those family Friday nights disappeared. Where did they go? Drive down the main street of your town today. Look for the giant neon cowboy hat of the Bonanza. Look for the rustic wooden sign of the Ponderosa. Chances are they are gone. Maybe the building is still there, turned into a dentist's office or a payday loan center, but the soul has left. The Great American Steakhouse wasn't just a business model, it was a cultural institution. It was the place where the middle class went to feel like kings for an hour. But slowly, over the decades, something changed. And it wasn't just the price of beef. We got busy. We got impatient. We traded dining for feeding. In the 1960s, dinner was an event. Today, dinner is an inconvenience. We replaced the sit-down steak dinner with the drive-thru window. We replaced the conversation with the podcast. We eat burgers wrapped in paper while steering with our knees, doing 60 miles an hour down the highway, stressing about the next appointment. We saved time, sure. But what did we do with that time? Did we use it to connect with our families? Probably not. We used it to work more, to scroll more, to worry more. And look at the cost. A value meal at a fast food joint today costs $12 or $13. For that same adjusted amount of money in 1965, you were sitting in a booth being served a T-bone steak on a hot metal platter. We have accepted a lower standard of living and convinced ourselves it's convenience. But the biggest loss isn't the steak, it's the table. The family dinner table was the anchor of society. It was where we learned manners. It was where we learned to listen. It was where we looked our fathers in the eye and saw that, despite the hard work, they were happy to provide for us. When those prices skyrocketed, when a steak dinner went from being a Friday night treat to a once-a-year luxury, we lost that ritual. The middle class was priced out of its own celebration. The gap between the rich and the worker grew so wide that the idea of a factory worker taking his family of 5 out for a steak dinner today sounds like a financial fantasy. So when we look back at those old menus with the $2.99 prices, it's okay to feel a little sting of sadness. It's not just nostalgia. It's a recognition that we had it good. We had quality food. We had affordable luxuries. And most importantly, we had the time to enjoy them. But here is the good news. The memory is still alive. You can still close your eyes and smell that charcoal smoke. You can still taste that Texas toast. And you can still tell these stories. If you remember the sizzle of the platter, the taste of the blue cheese, and the sound of your parents laughing in a red vinyl booth, then you carry a piece of that golden age with you. That is the legacy of the $2.99 steak. It reminds us that there was a time when the American dream tasted delicious and everyone could afford a slice. I want to thank you for joining me at the table today. But before you go, I need your help to keep this history alive. I want to turn the comments section into the biggest menu of memories on the internet. Tell me, what was your favorite steakhouse back then? Was it Ponderosa, Bonanza, Sizzler, or a local spot? And if you can remember, how much was the bill? Write it down below. Let's show the world what we ate and what we paid. If this video made your mouth water or brought a tear to your eye, please click the like button. It helps us serve these stories to more people. And don't forget to subscribe to American Echoes. We have a reservation waiting for you in the next video. Bon appetit, and until next time.